Blackwood Manor was a massive old mansion near Yorkshire. For over 100 years it had been abandoned, its windows broken, and its walls covered in ivy. Whichever family came to live in that mansion either vanished or was found dead. Only family that survived was Crawford's family 25 years ago. The Blackwood family, who was the owner of the mansion, had died mysteriously. Edward Blackwood, a loving husband and father who was fiercely loyal to his family, Lady Margaret Blackwood, wife of Edward Blackwood, a caring mother and 5 kids, Charles, Jonathan, Lillian, Victor, and Clara. The youngest daughter, who was a very loving and sensitive girl who was deeply connected to the doll who disappeared the same night. But one thing was left behind, a doll. Villagers claimed to hear Clara's voice crying for help if they got too close. No one ever dared to take the doll out of the house. Lily Crawford, a young writer fascinated by ghost stories, hears about Blackwood Manor. As soon as Lily hears about Blackwood Manor, days they spent in that manor flashed through her memory. She can never forget those scary days spent in the manor. She still sometimes hears Emily, the cursed doll, calling her in her dreams. Lily decides to visit, hoping to uncover the truth behind the cursed doll. On a gray, foggy evening, she arrives at the crumbling mansion. The iron gates creak open, and the garden is overgrown, the air heavy with silence. The door swings open on its own, as if inviting her in. Inside, the house was damp and quiet. Lily turned on her flashlight, lighting up the grand hall. Cobwebs hung from the chandeliers, and the air smelled of dust and mold. She shivered as the icy air wrapped around her, but kept walking. Lily climbed the creaky stairs to the nursery. The room was eerie but clean and untouched, unlike the rest of the house. In the corner she saw Emily, the cursed doll, sitting on the bed, wearing the same blue velvet gown from Lily's childhood. Her cracked porcelain face stared blankly ahead, but Lily felt the weight of her blue glass eyes, as if they were following her every move. On the wall beside the bed, written in dark red, were the chilling words, "Play with me." It was the same doll Lily had once played with in the manor, its presence now twisted by time and a sinister force. As Lily picked up the doll, the door slammed shut behind her. The rocking horse in the corner began to move on its own. Then a child's whisper filled the room. "Don't take her away." Lily, feeling uneasy, decided to take Emily downstairs, trying to ignore strange events happening around her. As she carried the doll in her arms, the house felt unnervingly silent, and each step she took made her more nervous. She tried to shake the feeling that something was wrong, but the air was heavy and the silence was unsettling. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, a voice suddenly whispered from behind her, "Lily, you're making the same mistake again." She froze. Her heart raced as she quickly looked over her shoulder, but the hallway was empty. The voice, soft but clear, seemed to echo in her mind. Lily's pulse quickened, and she could almost feel the house itself warning her. Terrified, Lily ran back to the nursery, hurriedly placing Emily back in the room. She felt the chill of the house closing in on her, and her legs felt like they were moving on their own as she dashed down the stairs. The voice echoed in her head, warning her that she was trapped. She tried to escape from the manor, but the main door won't open. The windows won't break. She's trapped. Whispers follow her wherever she goes. When she looks into the mirror, she doesn't see herself. She sees Emily standing behind her, smiling. She hears the voice of a little girl, giggling. "It's time to play, Lily." The doll appears in different rooms, always closer, always watching. Lily's fear turns into panic. While trying to escape from the manor, she accidentally entered the library. Lily saw all the books fell from the shelves, all open to pages with the same word, "Return and play with me." Lily panicked and fell unconscious on the ground. In her dream, she saw a pale little girl holding the doll. The girl's empty eyes stared at her as she whispered, "You came back for me. Now you'll stay. Let's play. You can't leave me this time." Lily woke in a panic and saw Emily sitting on the desk across the room. But she had left the doll in the nursery. The crack on Emily's face seemed deeper, and her smile looked wider. Lily felt her heart race, fear gripping her tightly, but she forced herself to stand. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "It's either me or the doll. This has to end." The house felt alive with a dark force. Doors slammed by themselves, and heavy footsteps echoed through the empty hall. Shadows danced along the walls as if reaching for her, and the air grew colder with every step. In the dining room, she wiped dust from a cracked mirror and froze by looking at the reflection of The Blackwood family seated at the long table, their pale faces still and cold. Among them sat Clara, holding Emily. The doll's glass eyes gleamed, almost smiling. Lily's stomach knotted with dread. She spun around to find the room empty. Only a single chair moved, rocking gently as if someone had just stood up. No matter where she turned, Emily was there. The cursed doll would appear everywhere she goes, always watching with eyes that seemed to glow. The crack on its porcelain face grew wider, and its blue dress looked freshly cleaned, though Lily knew it was impossible. Lily's breath came in short, quick gasps, her heart thudding in her chest as the feeling of Emily's eyes seemed to follow her everywhere. Her hand trembled as she held the flashlight, her only defense against the growing darkness around her. Determined to find the truth, she returned to the old, dusty library. She searched through the cluttered desk and found a hidden drawer. Inside was a worn leather journal with the initials MB on the cover. The pages were filled with Lady Margaret Blackwood's neat but panicked handwriting. The air in the study grows cold as Lily reads Lady Margaret's words. The flickering candlelight dims and a faint, sorrowful melody seems to echo through the room, as if the house itself remembers the night of terror. Lady Margaret's entries begin with her grief over her close sister Evelyn and her daughter Honora's untimely death. She describes Clara's close and strange bond with her cousin Honora. Lady Margaret also described how the doll spoke to her and became her only companion after the death of her cousin Honora. At first, Lady Margaret thought it was innocent, a child's way of coping with loss, but then Clara began to change. Clara's laughter is no longer hers. It is hollow. The doll, Emily, seems alive in her hands. Sometimes I feel as though its eyes follow me. Lady Margaret sat quietly in her study, her hands trembling as Clara's words echoed in her mind. "Honora told me," Clara had whispered, her eyes wide with an unnatural knowing. "She told me about Aunt Evelyn and her secrets." Lady Margaret's heart sank. She asked Clara, "Secrets? What do you mean, Clara?" "She wasn't kind," Clara whispered. "She knew things, dark things. She wanted to stay here forever. She didn't love us, Mother. She loved power." Margaret's breath caught in her throat. Her sister Evelyn had always seemed gentle, warm, someone she had trusted with all her heart. Memories of shared laughter and comforting embraces suddenly felt like lies wrapped in shadows. "No," she whispered to herself. "Evelyn loved me. She did. Didn't she?" But Clara's hollow gaze offered no comfort. "Honora knows the truth," the child said. Margaret clutched her chest, a cold dread seeping into her bones. She realized for the first time that Clara was slipping further from her reach, drawn into darkness she could no longer protect her from. Desperate to save her child, Lady Margaret sought help from a medium, a woman rumored to have knowledge of the supernatural. The medium suggested a ritual to bind the spirit Honora to the doll permanently and destroy the doll to free Honora. Believing this would free Clara from its influence, Lily's fingers tremble as she reads Lady Margaret's words. "I had no choice. To save my Clara, I will do anything. Tonight we will banish the spirit. Honora will trouble us no longer." As Lily reads the final entry, the study around her begins to shift. The walls darken, and a storm seems to rage outside, though the night had been calm moments before. She feels pulled into the memory, as if she's watching it unfold. Lady Margaret and her family stand in a circle around Clara, who clutches Emily tightly. The medium chants in a strange, unearthly way utterance. The room grows icy, and shadows lengthen unnaturally. Clara suddenly screams, a sound that pierces Lily's ears. The doll's blue eyes glow fiercely, and a deep, menacing voice echoes through the nursery. "You cannot bind me. I will take them all, I will take them all." Chaos burst into the room like a violent storm. The medium's body collapsed with a heavy thud, her breath gone, and eyes staring blankly into nothingness. Lady Margaret's desperate cry shattered the air as an unseen force gripped her by the arms and yanked her backward. She dug her nails into the wooden floor, but it was no use. Her terrified screams echoed as she was pulled beyond the circle of protection. Her husband clutched at his chest, his face twisted in panic, while the children's terrified wails pierced the darkness. Clara, standing motionless in the center, seemed to fade before their eyes. Her skin turned ghostly pale, like a porcelain doll drained of life. Her once bright eyes grew dark and empty, hollow pits filled with silence. In her small, shaking hands, she clung to Emily, the cursed doll, tighter than ever. The doll's cracked smile seemed to widen, its painted blue eyes gleaming with a terrible, unspoken power as if it fed on Clara's very soul. Lily snaps out of the vision, gasping for air. The journal falls from her hands, landing open to the last page, where Lady Margaret had scrawled a final warning in trembling handwriting. The doll is cursed. It holds our souls in torment. Do not disturb it. Do not take Emily away, or you will join us. As Lily looks around, the room seems to breathe. The shadows whisper and faint, ghostly figures of the Blackwood family appear briefly before vanishing. Lily realizes the doll isn't just haunted, but it's a vessel of pure evil. Terrified, Lily knows she must return Emily to the nursery to end the torment of the Blackwood family and avoid becoming the curse's next victim. But as she picks up the journal, a child's voice whispers from behind her, "You can't leave me." Lily turns to see Clara's ghost standing in the doorway holding Emily. The doll's blue eyes burn brightly, and the crack in its face seems to twist into a sinister grin. Somehow Lily gathers her courage and climbs the creaking staircase holding the cursed doll. The house feels alive, its walls groaning, and the air heavy with tension. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the walls, whispering her name. As she approaches the nursery, the door creaks open by itself, revealing the room just as it had been the night of the Blackwood tragedy. The rocking horse moves on its own, and the faint sound of Clara's laughter echoes in the air. Standing in the center of the room is Clara's ghost. Her face is pale, her eyes hollow. She clutches a spectral version of Emily, mirroring the real doll in Lily's hands. Clara's voice is soft, but it chills Lily to her core. "You can't take her away. She's mine." Lily's hands tremble as she places the doll on the bed. Lily speaks to Clara. "I'm not taking her. I'm trying to end this. You're trapped, Clara, and so is your family. Let me help you all." For a moment, Clara's expression softens. Her hand reaches out, but just as Lily thinks she's succeeded, Emily's porcelain face begins to twist. The doll's blue eyes glow brighter, and a deep, growling voice erupts. "You cannot free them." "They are mine, and so are you." The room explodes into chaos. The nursery walls crack and the air fills with piercing screams. Emily levitates from the bed, her tiny arms moving unnaturally as she twists in midair. Lily watches in horror as the doll's crack widens. Shadows pour from the walls, forming dark branches that wrap around Lily, pulling her closer to the floating doll. Clara's ghost screams, her small hands clawing at the branches as she tries to stop them. Clara shouts, "You must fight her! Destroy the doll! Break the curse!" Lily struggles against the shadows, her heart racing. Emily's voice booms, shaking the room. "You cannot destroy me. I am eternal." Scared, Lily remembers the journal's instructions. "Burn the doll to break the curse." She fumbles for her flashlight, using its beam to momentarily weaken the shadows. She grabs a nearby candle and lunges toward Emily. The moment the flame touches the doll's dress, an ear-piercing scream erupts from Emily. The shadows retreat, writhing and screeching as the flames consume the doll. Clara's ghost falls to her knees, her hollow eyes filling with tears. As the doll burns, the room shakes violently. Lily braces herself, convinced she's about to die. But then, everything stops. Silence fills the air. The nursery is no longer cold or eerie, but warm and filled with sunlight streaming through the windows. The ghostly figures of the Blackwood family appear, whole and peaceful. Clara smiles at Lily, her face no longer hello, but radiant. "Thank you," Clara whispers. The family begins to fade, their souls finally free. Lily watches as the last piece of Emily's charred remains crumbles into ash. The curse is broken, and the house feels still for the first time in over a century. Lily leaves the manor, her heart heavy but relieved. As she steps outside, the morning sun rises and the village appears in the distance. She turns back to the house one last time, expecting to see it as a crumbling ruin. But instead, the nursery window catches her eye. There, sitting on the windowsill, is a pristine version of Emily, her blue eyes gleaming and her crack mysteriously gone. The doll raises one hand as if waving. Lily's blood runs cold as she hears a faint whisper in the wind. "You didn't destroy me. You set me free."